You told me that you familiarize yourself with the TYS and the style of writing answers. So how do you absorb the style, Because as a student, you don't naturally have that answering style. So you absorbed it somehow. And what changed in the way that you answered questions after you learned the style?
I think for bio, what helped me a lot was the answering critiques and like the tuition. It helped me a lot to figure out how to rephrase my answers to make it much shorter. And then it also exposed me to TYS questions and like prelim questions, and also like the TYS answers were sometimes quite bad. Like they involved like stuff that's like out of syllabus. So I'd like rely on your answers and figure out how to respond to these questions. And this not only helped me with bio, but helped me with like physics and chem too, because like I had a better understanding of how to respond to the questions. So like when I had like so much TYS and like revision and like just a bunch of practice, I became very familiar with how the questions were phrased and what exactly they were looking for. By like checking like by having those corrections and like getting things wrong, I also understood things a lot more and what actually they're looking for to hit those keywords and get those marks.
So you got exposed to a lot of questions. And
that's like super important. Just practice. And like you don't have to like say, okay, now I'm getting myself familiarized. Subconsciously, it will also happen.
Yeah, that's true. So that's actually what happened for me. Like, I didn't purposely think like, oh, this is how to answer. When I was a student, I just kept looking at the answer key, right? For whenever I get wrong. And then by reading the answer keys, I learned how the answers phrase stuff, how the keywords, right? How the markers have the speak, like hence or therefore, all this nonsense thing. So I learned that from just reading answers. That's how I absorbed it.
You just like read and then you just automatically you're more familiarized than before.
Yeah.
So
correct.
That's all.
So what I would say to students, right, is to read good answers. Because like you said, the TYS assessment book thing, it's like, it's really crappy. Some like 2 marks question, they write 4 marks worth. Then some 4 marks question, they write 2 marks worth.
Yeah.
So if you absorb the wrong style, then you suffer lah. So that's why your batch of students complain. The batch before you also complained about it. So I was like, okay, I need to make my own. Then I had to make 10 years worth, right? Which is a lot of work. So I kept on procrastinating. Like, I was like 2 months late on my own deadline. And I was like, okay, I need to do this because their exams are coming soon. I think it was your prelims were coming soon. So I needed to make it before then. Then I told my friend, I don't know how much it was that I'll get fined, like 1,000 if I didn't make it by this date. So I made it. It was a lot of work, but worth it. Now you have good answers. Yes. So I need to like be very violent on my own procrastination. So there's this study that I heard of, right, where they would put a spring on a mouse tail in the lab, the lab rats, and then the rat at the front of the rat, right, they had a smell of cheese. So the rat's like, oh, I want to eat, right?
Yeah.
And the rat will pull itself towards there, and then they can measure the spring, how hard the rat is pulling. Okay, and then they did a separate setup with the same thing, but not only at the smell of cheese at the front, but they have the smell of cat fur at the back. So now they measured the spring, and the rats pulled way harder. So it shows us something that we can apply to our own lives also, which is that not only do we need an incentive, right, but we also need something to run away from. So that's why I have those fines. Because not only I have the incentive of like, oh, I create this for my students, they like it, etc. But I also am running away from like, oh, I'll be fined 1,000 if I don't do it by this date.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, great lesson from rats.
Yeah, I didn't know it could like be displayed in such a scientific way. That's also quite crazy.
You also mentioned that you learned how to write according to the mark allocation, and that definitely helped your OEQs a lot, right? Do you have any tips to share with a student who's struggling in mark allocation, like writing to mark allocation?
I feel like with practice and like familiarizing yourself with TYS and like the answers, and like especially your school teachers will teach you on what each mark is for. And like, okay, usually what my school taught me to do is to ensure that we got the marks. We used to write 1 extra point for like the questions that are a bit more vague. I would give like 1 extra point to ensure that I got like the full marks, because I think that helped me a lot, because sometimes the points you think that are accepted are not accepted, so you just give 1 extra point to make sure you get all those marks. So like 4 mark question, if I have time And if I feel like it's a more vague question and I'm not very confident in my answers, then I'll give 1 more point. And in the end, like, I think if you manage your time efficiently, that won't kill a lot of time. I think you still have time in the end to check.
Yeah.
So that's what happened for me, yeah.
So that's a good strat. I've checked with MOE BioTutor, and he says it's legit. So how it marks, right, is that in bio, O-level bio, they don't have access denied. So if you write an extra point, even if it's factually wrong, they just ignore it. You just don't get, but you won't like minus, you see? Unless you contradict yourself. So if let's say there's a 5-mark question and your first point is A, therefore, you just say A, okay? Statement A. Then your second point, your extra point, maybe your 6th extra point was A is not true. They're like, what? You just said A, now you're saying A is not.
Yeah.
So that kind obviously doesn't work. But if you write a separate point, and it's quite easy to think of them during the paper because you're already thinking of this question, right? And you have all these answers that come out. So if, I have 5 answers and it's a 4-mark, then just write the 5th one in. Get the extra possible, like, safety net mark.
Yeah, it's like a be safe and sorry.
yeah. But also don't push this to the extreme where you waste time, you run out of time. Yeah. So it's when it's convenient to do it, plus you're very sure of the extra point, you're like, I memorized this. I know all the keywords for this point. So then you write it in when it doesn't take time and you're sure.
Yeah, exactly. That like really assures you get your marks. Like after you finish the paper, you feel, okay, I'm confident.
Wow, this is a sneaky hack. Well, a very good hack. Yeah. Can you tell me what were the main things that made your time management much better? Because in the past you used to not finish, right?
Yeah.
So, example, do you things that maybe made your time management much better? Maybe you only wrote what's relevant. You use memory shortcuts. Do you skip certain questions at first? Do you do the paper in chronological order? Yeah, so you can tell me any of the strategies that you use.
Okay, I think what was so important, especially for bio, was rephrasing the question and it making sure to eliminate all those unnecessary vocabulary like thus or like and so on. Like I just make things very short and to the point. And I remember my school teacher would also get pissed off at students for making it really wordy, and they used to always say grandmother story and everything. So I think that helped a lot. Like for subjects like science, you can make things almost like their point form. So like that saves you a lot of time, because I know students especially because I was someone that was like good in English and I liked to write like English and stuff, so I would waste so much time using thus and therefore, and like sometimes I don't know, my brain subconsciously like, I use thus already in
so
that I cannot use thus again, so I use therefore. It doesn't make any sense. It's like completely waste of time. So I used to make sure that I made things very to the point and concise, and also examiners like that. So maybe if they're one thing they're not sure whether to give you a mark, maybe you can appeal to them a bit more if your answers are a lot more concise.
Yeah.
And it's just easier for them too, and easier for you.
Yeah, so you stop irritating them, right?
Yeah,
you're right. So when it's too long, humans make errors, and maybe they might miss something, they might miss a keyword because you're so long they had to skim through faster.
Yeah.
Maybe they might miss out. And then, I like your point of you make it like almost point form. So in English, in languages, you will get penalized heavily. But this is science, and so they don't care. So you can make the English horrible, right? And so what I would do, and I also teach you all, is that I would, especially when I have no time, I'll start removing all the connecting words like and, like so, and all these, like the, and then I would just be left with mostly keywords. Yeah, so it's be so saturated with keywords.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you can do that, that's my biggest tip for OEQs. Just spam relevant keywords until it's so saturated with just keywords. That will not only be fast, time management will win, but also so many keywords, right? So the examiner will be like, wow, this is good, this student studied, then give you a lot of marks.
Yeah. Exactly.
How about skipping questions? Do you like skip questions? Do you do in order of the questions?
Like, something I had to come face to face with during my Sec 4 year is that I got to be practical and I have to be realistic. And so I have 8 subjects, 6 subjects will be considered for my overall score. So I had to make sure I prioritize those that I knew I could score the mark. Then subjects I felt a bit guilty of, because like you still have a teacher for that subject. But I used to like, for example, Malay. I took Malay. I used to not study. I used to study Malay very rarely, and so I just used prioritize, because I knew that no matter what, Malay was not going to be in my L1 R5. So I had to be practical and make sure that I prioritize what mattered, because in the end, it's the results that what matter the most. And so so I had to be practical in that sort of sense. So like, for example, chemistry, I sucked a lot at calculation questions. During my chem paper, I just skipped the calculation questions, and I still managed to get A1.
Dang.
So I just made sure I knew myself well enough that I knew what I lacked in. I knew that, okay, calculations I'm still not super confident in when I took the paper. So I just skipped them and focused my time on what actually I could score, and ensure that I got those marks.
That's good.
Yeah.
So I can think of two similar stories. One was in my bio prelim in JC, and I was rushing. I wasn't really rushing yet. There was this question in like 60% of the way where it was a genetic cross diagram. And that wastes so much time, and it was only 3 marks. So I'm like, what a scam. Then I just go, I skip. And at the end of the paper, I finished just in time. So that means that question I forgot lah. I mean, not I forgot, I intentionally left it blank. But I still got A. So it was all worth it, right?
Like, instead of you spending so much time in the question, let's say you really legit couldn't figure it out, you wouldn't have finished the paper.
Correct.
So it's like, yeah, it's so important to know how to prioritize your timing. And I know some students are like, I can't let this question go blank, right? They feel like guilty, and like when they do the rest of the paper, they're like, that question I still haven't done. Then like, you have to just know that in the end, you get net benefit by leaving that question blank. So you just have to be smart about it.
Yeah, I know. It's this like completion tendency or perfectionistic tendency.
Yeah.
Which I have. I have this at first also. So I understand when students don't want to leave it.
Yeah. Blank.
But it's such a good skill. And same for like in real life. Because when I prepare a lesson, sometimes they're like, oh, I have not enough time to prepare this. Then I need to sacrifice stuff. Like, okay, this one I cannot be so nice on my drawing. I just need to quickly rehearse the rest of the content.
Yeah.
And then, still things turn out well because I know what to sacrifice. So if you like that clip, click here to watch another. And if you want to watch the full podcast, click here.